On the day of the company's anniversary party, I wore my usual suit, and my wife, Linda, donned a dress she had chosen especially for the occasion, and we headed to the venue. Upon arriving at the hotel where the party was being held, we checked in at the reception. Linda was thrilled by the flowers and beautiful decorations adorning the venue. I was hoping for a peaceful time as she seemed to be looking forward to the meal, but my wish was shattered by my boss, Jason. "Hey, you were here." Upon spotting me, Jason hurried over, glancing at Linda beside me, said, "Is that your parent next to you? Don't bring your mother along." Overwhelmed with anger, I took Linda's hand and said, "Let's go," then started walking towards the exit. Soon, I could hear the sound of hurried footsteps behind us. Turning around, I saw the president of our company, Mr. Thompson, running towards us with a pale face. There was also a man in his 60s, standing beside him. Seeing Mr. Thompson's face, I stopped, intending to say something to him before leaving the venue. But before I could say anything, the man next to Mr. Thompson began to speak. "Linda, is that you? My name is Tom. I'm in my 30s and currently handle system development at the company. I enjoy my work, and although we don't have children, Linda and I live a fulfilling life together. I met Linda about 5 years ago. In fact, I joined a current company just a few years ago, having previously worked as a teacher at an international school in Cambodia. That's where I met Linda. She was working for an organization that supports developing countries and had been dispatched to Cambodia. It felt like a fateful encounter. Until then, I had never been in a relationship, and I was convinced I would live a life far from marriage. That's precisely why I decided to take a job abroad, where I met Linda and found myself falling for her. I was instantly drawn to her as she interacted with the locals, laughed freely with the children, and showed genuine kindness. It seemed like Linda was somewhat aware of me too, and naturally, we started to have meals together. Having never dated a woman before, it felt almost surreal how smoothly our relationship began. Linda, being over a decade older than me, was initially concerned about our age difference, but it didn't matter to me. Instead, I was attracted to her tolerance and innate goodness, something I didn't find in women my age or younger. Every time I expressed this to Linda, she would smile at me, delighted. Having met such a wonderful woman, my boss, Jason, always ridiculed our relationship. He often mocked the age gap between my wife and me, using Linda as a joke to amuse others. Jason's mockery began about 3 years ago, not long after we met. That day was my welcome party, and despite being a mid-career hire, most of the employees had gathered for me. Being a young and small startup, there weren't many employees. Yet, I felt at ease with the company's homely atmosphere, believing I could fit in quickly. My comfort began to wane when Jason, who initially seemed pleasant, gradually became drunk and his behavior started to feel off. "Tom, you said you were married, right? Show me a picture of your wife." "Of course, but please don't expect a beauty like your wife, who everyone looks up to." Jason had been bragging repeatedly about how young and beautiful his wife was to his subordinates. "Rather than hanging out with these guys, I'd rather head home early to see my wife," he slurred, boasting about her, so I chimed in to sing his praises too. Jason was enjoying our conversation, but when I showed him a photo of Linda, he burst out laughing, spitting everywhere. "Is this your wife? More like your mom than your wife. Do you call her mom when you get home?" Jason said that, then started passing the photo to his subordinates, laughing and saying, "Check this out. This is Tom's mom." Colleagues glanced my way, reluctantly joining in Jason's jests to stay in his good graces. Though feeling bad for me, they couldn't outright dismiss Jason, our superior. Frustrated with Jason, I felt guilty for putting my colleagues in this awkward position. But appearances don't define a person. I'm sure you'll understand once you meet her, I said, trying to keep calm, but Jason only provoked me further. What are you talking about? I wouldn't want to meet her even if you paid me. I might age just by association." Saying that, Jason started fiddling with his phone and then showed us a picture of his wife on the screen. At that, exclamations of admiration escaped from the employees. To me, it looked unmistakably like the kind of brown-nosing the employees always seem to be doing. Jason probably often boasts about his wife to his subordinates, and his constant nature must be exasperating for the employees. Although they respond positively to Jason's stories, their faces seem to betray a sense of annoyance as they nod along. Women have to be young and beautiful, right? Look at Tom. He's only been here a few days but stays late all the time. If his wife were more appealing, he'd probably rush home. Saying that, Jason burst into laughter and finished his glass of beer. A coworker nearby refilled his empty glass, and Jason nodded in satisfaction, holding the glass in his hand. "I'm in management, so I can't leave early, but I'd swap places with you. Who doesn't want to go home? Learn fast and climb a ladder, will you?" After spitting out those words with slurred speech, Jason emptied his glass and stood up to head to the restroom. Sympathetic glances from colleagues felt like salt in the wound. From that day on, every time Jason saw me, he'd start by poking fun at Linda. "Good morning. You're early for work again today. Seems like you'd rather not be at home, but please, let's skip the excessive overtime." After saying that, he'd erupt into laughter and make his way to his desk. Though I enjoyed my work, Jason's comments dampened my spirits. While I was organizing some items, Jason called me over. When I went to him, he said, "From now on, make me a coffee when you arrive at work," assigning me a task unrelated to my job. I thought to myself that this was surely not right and considered objecting. But then I remembered a junior employee used to make coffee for Jason every morning. It must not have been out of initiative, but rather, as now, out of being ordered to do so. The thought of Jason getting displeased if I refused, and then asking another junior employee to do the same task, made it hard for me to say no. I let out a small sigh and responded in a quiet voice, "Yes." I headed straight to the kitchenette to brew some coffee and then took it to Jason. On my way there, I realized I should have checked with the employee who usually made Jason's coffee whether he liked sugar or milk in it, but I decided to be more careful about that in the future and continued on my way. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Is black okay? I should have asked about your preference before brewing it. My apologies for the oversight." After I said that and handed over the coffee, Jason spent some time looking at the coffee in the cup. I briefly worried if something was not to his liking, but was soon reassured when Jason cracked a smile. However, what Jason said next was almost unbelievable. "This coffee doesn't smell appetizing. Mind throwing it away?" Saying that, Jason handed me the cup directly. Thinking it must surely be a joke, I gave a polite smile, but Jason, as if urging me to take it quickly, thrust the cup towards me. Realizing he was serious, I couldn't hold back and confronted him. "Don't you think that's a bit rude? At the very least, please prepare your own drink. And please, don't give me orders that are unrelated to work ever again." When I showed my anger, Jason tried to calm me down with a sheepish grin. "Don't get so worked up. Besides, it's not like I was giving you an order. You were just doing me a favor, right? Well, from now on, I probably won't be able to drink the coffee you make, so I'll ask someone else without being told." If I stay any closer to Jason, I might end up yelling in anger. To control myself, I refrained from saying anything more and returned to my seat. But Jason's relentless mocking didn't stop. No matter how much I tried to distance myself, he would approach me with more infuriating comments. "Do you not have any kids? Well, you got married late and to someone older, like a mother. Guess kids are out of the question." In this day and age, such remarks should be unthinkable to anyone with a sense of decency. Jason either lacks this sensibility or is deliberately trying to hurt me. Though I should ignore him, His words sting like a thorn in my heart. Both Linda and I love children. But as Jason mentioned, we are indeed older and mindful of the physical toll on Linda. We haven't explicitly discussed it, but we're both aware of these feelings deep down. That's why Jason's comments hurt me deeply and felt so demeaning. I could feel the pitying looks from nearby colleagues. Whether it's due to Jason's rude behavior or the realization of how deeply shocked I am, I can say, despite my passion for my job, I've been feeling increasingly out of place. The harassment from Jason continued, but I stayed at the company. While Jason often bothered me around work hours and breaks, once I'm engrossed in my tasks, I can immerse myself in my work. By that time, I was quite satisfied, and I suppose I had also acquired the skill to let anything unrelated to work that Jason might say just go in one ear and out the other. Lately, I've been less irritated by Jason. One day, Jason asked me about a company anniversary party happening over the weekend. About the upcoming company anniversary party, can your wife make it? Spouses and children were invited to the 10th anniversary celebration of our company's founding. While it's true that today's era makes it easier to establish startup companies, many still end up not surviving and eventually go bankrupt. In such an environment, it's impressive that this company has managed not only to survive for a decade, but also seems poised for steady growth in the future. I love my job and hope this life continues, but bringing Linda is another matter. Considering my past interactions with Jason, Linda would likely end up hurt. Moreover, Jason probably asked me if my wife was coming out of curiosity, wanting to see what she's like. He might not hesitate to make hurtful remarks even in Linda's presence. We're allowed to bring family, but I thought Linda might prefer a quiet evening at home. When I mentioned that, Jason looked surprised. Hey, don't dismiss it as nothing. I owe you one, so the least I can do is say hello. Clearly, Jason intended to involve Linda somehow. I was determined not to bring her, but Jason's next remark made me waver. What, are you embarrassed to show her to us? Pretending to love your wife in front of us but actually feeling inferior, right? Provoked by Jason, I found myself responding defensively. That's not true. All right, I'll talk to her about it. And so, I ended up discussing the company party with Linda. As soon as I get home, I immediately ask Linda, remember I mentioned the company's anniversary party this weekend? Turns out, families are welcome. I was thinking of going alone initially, but what do you think? Linda's face lit up upon hearing this. Really? I'd love to greet everyone at your workplace and see who you work with. Let's go together. Her genuine smile momentarily made me look forward to the party. However, Jason's smug grin soon invaded my thoughts. Hoping Linda wouldn't get hurt, I awaited the weekend with a mix of emotions. On the day of the party, I wore my usual suit, and Linda wore a dress she had chosen specifically for this occasion as we headed to the venue. Upon arriving at the hotel venue, we checked in. Linda was delighted by the floral arrangements and decorations. She was also looking forward to the meal, and I hoped for a peaceful time, but Jason shattered that hope. Hey Tom, there you are. Upon spotting me, Jason hurried over and said while glancing at the person next to me, Linda. Is this your parent next to you? Don't tell me you brought your mother. He had already seen Linda's photo, so such a mistake was impossible. Linda, unaware of Jason's malice, responded with a smile. No, I'm his wife, Linda. Thank you for always supporting him. I got a lot of sun exposure while working in Cambodia, which makes me look older than I am. When Linda said that, Jason agreed sarcastically. Indeed, you're right. Linda seemed unfazed by Jason's response, but it appeared to bother him. Finally, he made an outrageous comment. So, you're his wife. My apologies. I heard you were married recently, but at your age, having children must be challenging. Tom mentioned he likes kids, but I guess some things have to be sacrificed when you marry later in life. Even Linda couldn't hide her hurt, forcing a smile before looking down. I couldn't stand it anymore and looked at the seating chart to leave. We'll be finding our seats now. Thank you for having us today. Jason wouldn't let me leave the scene. And as always, he piled on the insults with his usual persistence. By the way, this party was only for spouses and children, wasn't it? I hope there's no misunderstanding. It was a roundabout way of suggesting that Linda and I looked like mother and son. I lost my temper and raised my voice at Jason. This person is my wife. How many times do I have to tell you? The room went silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on us. Linda, embarrassed and her pride wounded, kept her head down. Jason, initially shocked by my outburst, seemed displeased at being yelled at by a subordinate. He spoke to me in a low voice. "Who do you think you're talking to? It seems you lack the common sense expected of a working adult. We can't have someone like you here. Please leave for today." Unable to contain my anger, I retorted to Jason with more force than intended. "I can't stand being in such a distasteful place any longer. Excuse us." Taking Linda's hand, I said, "Let's go," and headed for the exit. I was aware of the eyes of everyone in the venue on us. While walking amidst frustration and embarrassment, I heard the sound of hurried footsteps coming from behind. Turning around, I saw our company president, Mr. Thompson, pale-faced and running towards us. A man in his 60s was with him. Seeing Mr. Thompson's face, I stopped to say something before leaving the venue. But before I could speak, the man beside Mr. Thompson spoke up. "Linda, is that you, Linda?" Linda, who had been looking down, slowly lifted her face upon hearing her name. Surprised, she covered her mouth with her hand. "Could it be Alex?" The man standing next to Mr. Thompson, Alex Parker, seems to have come here with the president after hearing the commotion. It turned out he had been watching from a distance, and upon realizing the woman hanging her head was Linda, he hurried after her. "Linda, what exactly is your relationship with this person?" As Mr. Thompson was about to explain, "This person is..." Jason interrupted him. He began speaking with a condescending look, as if to educate someone unaware of the facts. "This is Mr. Parker, a major client of ours. Without him, our company would hardly survive. Mr. Parker, I deeply apologize for my subordinate's extreme rudeness." I hadn't realized the man was such an important figure. Instinctively, I straightened up, but I didn't understand how Alex was related to Linda. Looking at Linda, she uttered something shocking. "He is my brother. It's been a long time, Alex." Both Jason and I were taken aback by her words. It seemed that our company's president, Mr. Thompson, had heard from Alex beforehand that she resembles his sister, Linda. That's probably why, after overhearing part of our conversation, he chased after us as we were leaving, his face pale with urgency. But Jason's face was even paler than Mr. Thompson's. Of course, given the current times, it's unthinkable that he kept making those comments to the sister of a highly important client. However, Linda and I had never had a wedding or a family gathering, and I had never heard of her having a brother. Moreover, he seemed much older than Linda. When I looked at Linda for an explanation, she began to tell her story. I had met Linda's parents in person, but it turned out that her mother was actually her father's second wife. Linda's father had lost his first wife to illness, and by that time, he already had a son who was in elementary school. That son was Alex. Thus, Alex and Linda are half-siblings. Though there's an age gap between Linda and me, she's my dear sister. Hearing such harsh words about her pains me as well. When Alex glared at Jason, Jason noticeably shrank back. "Just some casual conversation, right, Tom? We talk like this all the time, don't we?" Jason looked at me for support, but there was no way I would affirm such behavior. Of course, Jason had deeply hurt Linda this time. Such actions are inexcusable. Indeed, Jason has made such remarks to me regularly. Each time, I felt uncomfortable but somehow endured it. If you ask other employees, they'll confirm that Jason's behavior is excessive. Come on, what's this all of a sudden? It's normal for guys to joke around like this. Jason tried to defend himself, but Alex cut him off. Do you not know the proper way to communicate? Can I trust a company where someone like you is in a managerial position? This concerns compliance as well. Hearing Alex's comments, Mr. Thompson sweated and apologized. Jason, even more flustered, kept trying to justify himself. I deeply apologize for any discomfort caused. Please rest assured, there's absolutely no issue with our company's culture. I have no interest in listening to someone who casually makes such remarks. Alex retorted sharply and turned to Mr. Thompson. Let me be clear, we've just witnessed an employee make problematic statements. How you handle this will determine whether I can continue to trust your company. It was evident that Alex was demanding strict action against Jason. Indeed, a company that overlooks such issues is bound to decline. Despite my own failing in not having filed a complaint with the appropriate authorities, I hoped that Mr. Thompson would impose a severe punishment. As Mr. Thompson hesitated, a cheerful voice said, "What's going on here?" A stylish woman approached Jason and stood beside him, arm in arm. Seeing the woman's face, I immediately recognized who she was. She is Jason's wife. Under normal circumstances, Jason might have boasted about her, but now was not the time. Instead, he seemed clearly annoyed by her presence. Could these be the people you were talking about? The May December couple, she began to say, looking at us with a mocking expression. At that moment, Jason shouted, "Just shut up and go over there." He likely mocked us at home too, using our situation as a joke over drinks. I could easily picture such scenes. After Jason's wife left, Mr. Thompson cleared his throat to gather attention. As Mr. Parker said, we need to clarify the facts and consider disciplinary action, including possible dismissal. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Mr. Thompson said so. Hearing those words, Alex slowly nodded in agreement. If your company is serious about addressing misconduct, I can continue to trust it. This involves my family, so I'd appreciate a follow-up report. With that, Alex said, "I'll excuse myself for today," and headed for the exit. From his posture, it was clear he was somehow managing to contain his anger. Mr. Thompson rushed after him as Jason watched in dismay. Linda and I decided not to attend the party any longer and went to another hotel for dinner instead. Since we had dressed up and gone out, we decided not to just head home but to treat ourselves to a nice meal instead. Raising a toast, I spoke to Linda. "Sorry for making you feel bad today. Work is interesting, but that person really causes trouble." When I apologized, Linda shook her head apologetically. "I'm the one who should be sorry. I'm sure it's because of me that you often feel so downhearted." I had never seen Linda, who usually has an untroubled smile, blaming herself like this. What others say doesn't matter. I was drawn to your smile and your inner beauty. With that, Linda said, "Thank you," and finally showed me a smile. Then, I asked Linda something that had been on my mind for a while. "More importantly, you seemed quite close to Alex, but you've never mentioned him before. Could you tell me about the two of you?" "Sorry I haven't talked about it. It's not that I wanted to hide it." Linda then began to share her thoughts. By the time Linda was in elementary school, Alex was already in high school. When Linda found out that she and Alex were half-siblings, she couldn't shake the feeling that her mother favored her exclusively. Linda always felt guilty towards Alex and, admiring him, thought it was better to distance herself from him. That's why, from a young age, she was determined to work abroad. Since starting to work overseas, she has hardly returned to America. and she can't remember the last time she met Alex, which surprised me greatly. But Alex really seemed to care about you. Maybe you don't need to feel so burdened for his sake. Linda pondered for a moment, then sipped her drink, saying, maybe you're right. The following week after the party, the company set up a consultation service and a committee to investigate Jason's case. The committee's inquiries quickly brought Jason's past issues to light. Within a few months, Jason stopped coming to work without any notice, leading to either disciplinary dismissal or resignation. Though I felt somewhat guilty about his departure, I wasn't the only victim, and Jason had brought it upon himself. I hoped he would learn from this failure in his next job. After Jason left, I was able to work under a new supervisor without any stress. My relationship with Linda remained strong, filling both my professional and personal life with satisfaction. One day, as I went about my daily routine, Linda approached me with a proposal. We've had dinner with my parents, but how about having a meal with my brother, with Alex? I readily agreed to Linda's proposal. I had been curious about what became of their relationship since then, but I found myself unable to ask. Dining together likely meant Linda had come to terms with her feelings. I looked forward to the day when the three of us would dine together. Weeks later, the dinner took place. Thank you for today. My name is Tom, once again. Thank you as well. Let's skip the formalities today, Alex said with a smile, turning to Linda. I was surprised when you suddenly went abroad to work and we lost contact. Why do you always run away? Faced with Alex's question, Linda shared the feelings she had once confided in me. For Alex, it was like suddenly having a sister. She used to feel guilty, as if her mother's love was solely focused on her. Deciding to leave the house due to memories of Alex being in a bad mood. After listening intently to these stories, Alex finally smiled and said this. Maybe it was just teenage awkwardness. I might have been immature, but I was happy to have a sister. That hasn't changed. And our mother loved me as her own, despite not being her biological son. Linda seemed relieved by his words. Above all, we're the only siblings we have. Let's support each other from now on. And Tom, as a member of my extended family, I'm counting on you too. We clinked our glasses, reaffirming our bond, and toasted once more.